What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rabbit's Used Cars. You know, when you're in business, you got to be able to look at the good, but you got to be able to see the bad. And I'm going to get to this. Just stick with me. Everybody sees the potential, the growth, making money part. That's easy. But it can't always go up. You got to understand, you got to work, and it took me years to grasp this subject. The economy can't go straight up. It's going to fluctuate, obviously. And there's things that happen that affect the economy. And sometimes they can be little things that make a big difference. Sometimes they can be big things that make a huge difference. And I felt like I need to do this video for you guys because I got a lot of guys that are starting out, whether it be in cars or some other genre of business, but it basically affects everybody. At the end of the day, business is business, no matter what you do. There's certain businesses that are economy proof, per se, but they still are affected, and that's something I like to call it reading between the lines, because there's hints and there's clues. And something about the economy and business and history in general is it repeats itself a lot. So you can learn a lot from things that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. And before someone says, okay, boomer, hear me out. It's going to make a lot of sense really soon. Asshole. You see hints. Okay, so just take like today's economy right now as we speak. It's July 12th. Cars are at an all-time high. Well, why are used cars so high right now? I mean, you got to think about it. You've got Kia Souls bringing double what they were 2 years ago, used. Every used car, no matter what it is, Land Rovers, Jaguars, Chevrolets, Fords, Dodges, everything through the roof. And it's not, so when you got everything going up, you can say, well, it's the cost of living and, it's the demand. But what caused this? What caused this price hike in everything? And it's not just cars, lumber. I mean, everything. Raw materials in general are going up. But why does that make things that have been built for years all of a sudden spike in value? And, there's no exact, well, it was this. But you can play Scooby-Doo and look for clues. Well, obviously, look at your new car dealerships. Now, they're starting to get cars in now. But 3 weeks ago, a month ago, their lots were barren. Couldn't get inventory. Pay a top dollar for your trade. And if they give you big money for your trade, that means they're going to need that and then some on the other side. And I'm not talking about you're trading a car in a normal circumstance and they gave you above wholesale for your car. That's totally different because they're working that into the deal. You've got car lots that are just buying retail cars and paying retail prices to sell above retail right now and have been for months. And I mean, countless examples of this. I mean, when you start seeing trucks with 50,000, 70,000, 80,000 miles on them, and they're asking damn near what they cost new. What causes this? Is it because we can't get new ones? And I tell you this story because I want you guys to understand that there's a difference in real demand and fake demand. And there is a shortage. I've heard certain computer chips, and it's got all these cars sitting, waiting, and all this bullshit. Do you realize there's not going to be one part that's going to slow that car down? General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, Honda, these guys are pretty smart. So if they got one vendor that can't give them the part they need, they find a vendor that can. Or they get to the bottom why they can't do that, whatever. They're not just going to let cars sit. So that's bullshit. But that's what they tell you to make you buy into this just blown out of proportion market is the best way to put it, because everything's inflated horribly. It's trickled down into everything from the gas you buy to the candy bar you bought at the convenience store to that gallon of milk, eggs, going to Lowe's and going to buy some lumber, whatever. It's all a trickle down effect. But why, just in cars in general, why did they get so high all of a sudden for a used car? And if it's true demand, that means you can't get this, and it's driving the price up. And I think at first it was. I think a lot of it was the workforce. I think personally, because of COVID, people staying at home. And you got a lot of people that can work from home, but unfortunately, we have a lot of jobs you can't do at home. You have to get your hands dirty and do them. I know I'm going to get a little flack for this, but I really think stimulus checks are a horrible idea all the way around. Everybody likes free money, but you got to understand there's nothing free. There's a catch to everything. And you may not see it now, but there's always going to be a catch. But you've got this market. And I mean, the government's giving out free money. You've got used cars bringing damn near twice what they were a year before for the same car with more miles on it. Because, we can't get none because we're waiting on these microchips, or we're waiting on this, or, the line's been shut down, the plant's been shut down, and we can't get inventory, so we're going buy. This is the thing is you can get a lot of people buying into this that have the money to buy at an inflated price. Well, how about if you can't afford a car at an inflated price? You can't, you got to pay normal price. That's all you can afford. Well, you don't buy. So what happens when all these people that can pay more do? All of a sudden, new cars are starting to come back in, and they've sold all these used cars way over retail. And keep in mind that 90% of those cars they sold were financed with gap insurance and all this stuff on them. So you basically have buried people in used cars. And now you have new cars coming in because they've held the floodgates back on these to drive the demand over here. Did anybody tell you in a car dealership, a new car dealership, a new car franchise, the most money is made, and I don't care what anyone tells you, the most money in any new car dealership is made on the used car lot, hands down. If you don't believe me, why is there 40 million used car lots in the country and every new car dealership has one? Because they make money. You've got all these people, and they're doing the same way with the housing market. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. Houses that were $400,000 a year ago are $600,000. And if you play in the housing market and you play your cards right and do a quick flip, you can make a quick buck. But you'll understand the damage that quick buck's doing to the economy, because now you've got people that are in houses for an inflated rate. Well, unfortunately, the economy can only go up so much, and it's got to come down. And that's where I'm talking at in this video. That's the moral of the story, is I really feel, and I'm not an economist, I'm not Dave Ramsey, I'm not that guy, but I'm telling you guys, this is not the time to buy. You see a bunch of new cars here in the warehouse? No, because I'm not going to pay inflated prices for cars to have inventory. Something an old car dealer buddy told me one time. I used to love to go to the sale and buy cars, and sometimes you had a good night, you might buy 4 or 5 cars. You go to the sale, and sometimes you couldn't buy nothing. Everything was just going sky high. The room was full. Blah blah blah. They're just bidding against each other. It's a pissing for distance contest. And I jump in there with them and try to get something bought. But you got to understand, you can't look at it like if you don't get something bought, you lost. Sometimes when you leave with your money in your pocket, you're ahead of the game. And I really feel that so many people have jumped on the bandwagon of buying this inflated stuff, and your sea of buyers that can actually afford it are either A, holding back because they're saying, hey, what's going on here? Or B, they are buying it, but you only have so many. You're starting to see a little slowdown in things. And then, like I said about history repeating itself, I am a CNBC dork, from way back. If you ever want to get a good gauge of how the economy's going, watch what the big banks are doing. Because I'm going to tell you something. Anybody in the world knows business, it's a bank. So just this past week, there's 4 really big banks that do a certain service. And basically it's a credit line. It's an unsecured loan, kind of works like overdraft, but instead of being, $500,000, $1,500, something like that, $5,000 all the way to $100,000. Now keep in mind, as a lending tool for a bank to make money off of interest, the interest rate, obviously, because this is an unsecured loan, that's open-ended. Basically, it's a blank check for X to X amount of dollars, wherever you're approved for. And it just sits on the end of your checking account. So, hey, I want to go buy this 1970 GTO for 40 grand. Here you go. And you're paying, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way to 21% interest. These 4 banks, huge banks here in the U.S., are having these lines of credit, basically, unsecured loans. And you can go out and do whatever. Kind of works like an equity line. If you don't use it, it don't cost you anything. But, you basically pay on what you use. These things are feelers for the banks. Not only is it something to make money, but these things are feelers for the economy. And they watch these things like a hawk. And basically, you're the guinea pig. So when they see all these lines of credit and people are getting out money over and over and over, usually in small increments is really what scares them, because they know what you're doing. What are you doing with $5,000? You're getting by. You got a couple guys that are buying a hot tub, but the majority of them, hey, I had a slow week at work, or, we were shut down for a little while, or, hey, I maxed my credit card out. We're getting these little loans out, and they see you doing that. That's a red flag. When you see people using credit cards and unsecured money to survive, that's the calm before the storm. And I feel really strongly that's where we're at right now. I'm not end of the world, planting seeds of doubt. None of that bullshit. The world goes on. I'm just saying. Food for thought. So anyway, they have these lines of credit. Well, all 4 of these major banks stopped, cut all credit lines. So if you had money on there, you just make payments on what you borrowed, but there's no more. And if you didn't use it, you lost it. So why would a bank stop lending money? Something they're making good money off of. You got to think about it, like a mortgage. Yeah, over 30 years, it makes a little bit of money, but look how low mortgage rates are. 1.9%, 2%. Do you really want to get that kind of return on your investment? And then you got to think about the large amounts you're having to give out to even remotely make it worthwhile. So obviously, these credit lines are a great money maker for a lending institution or a bank. So why stop? Because it's an unsecured loan. If you don't make that payment on that house, they'll take your house from you. If you don't make that payment on your car, they'll take your car from you. Those are secured loans. That's the difference. This is unsecured. It's like a credit card. They can call you and threaten you. That's about it. Why would they stop? Because they're reading between the lines. They're seeing how people are using this money. They're seeing that they're pulling out small amounts, small increments. They're living above their means. They're living off a credit card, basically. They're living off this unsecured money. They pull this back. And, and I know people are going to be like, well, banks do things like that all the time. Okay. So stop there. These same banks, 3 of them were around then. 2007, they did the same thing. You know what happened after that? Then we had, the housing crisis, 08, 09. It was murder. You got to think about houses, all these people got into houses that really couldn't afford them, got in over their head. I mean, and then the cause of it was, subprime lenders and things like that were jumping in, basically predatory lending people and putting them in their first home, which is great, but they couldn't afford that first home. Making loans to people that they probably shouldn't have made loans to. And when it all caught up, it was over with. And that's when they did this. Really, everybody says 08, 09. I'll be honest with you, and I was working at the Ford store in '07 when all this went down. And I saw when I was working at the Ford store, we were financing cars for people. I remember getting that email from Ford Motor Credit saying that we're now offering 120% loan value on vehicles. So you're telling me I could buy a new F-150 and borrow no money down, 100%, and then on good credit, I can borrow an extra 20% to cover negative equity. This is downhill business. So when you see things like that, these are huge red flags. You can only keep that up for so long. Hence what's going on with the houses and stuff now, and lumber being sky high and used cars going crazy and all this stuff. It can only go like that for so long before it just stops. And unfortunately, usually when it stops, it does like, okay, guys, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going back to normal again. It doesn't go like that. It takes a hit and it drops like a rock. I pray it plateaus. As history shows, it typically nosedives. So that's something to keep in mind, and I think that's the big thing in business. And a lot of you guys that are, newer business guys. But one silver lining to this dark cloud is this economic forecast and this economic projection. I'm not the weatherman. This type of environment breeds entrepreneurs. Because when you're trying to dig yourself out of a hole, what do? You pick up a side job, you get a side hustle, you start doing this to make a little bit of money. And this breeds businesses like happened in '08, '09. You had, the big thing was service then, landscaping and irrigation services and all these random things, detail shops, cars. And next thing you know, think about getting into a lot of these businesses doesn't take a lot of upfront capital. And these guys started small, and you got a lot of companies that boomed after getting started and the stuff that went on then. So hopefully, we'll have the same thing happen with this if it happens like that. So you got to think about that, and it's fun buying new stuff. And I have to sit on my hands not to buy something. I love buying cars. I scroll constantly. I'm like a damn crackhead looking for his next fix. I love buying. But you got to buy smart. And you can't get so wrapped up in the environment around you just because everybody else is overpaid don't necessarily mean you need to. Because I'm going to tell you something. Whatever goes up comes back down. Guys, we'll catch you next time at Rabbit's Used Cars. You got to understand those big car dealerships are a business. Those big car dealerships are a business. 2007. Thanks.